Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
You're listening to All Things Considered. I'm Jamie Floyd. The de Blasio administration has released an ambitious cultural plan for New York City aimed at expanding inclusiveness and diversity at the city's art institutions. Officials say the plan, Create NYC, comes after dozens of focus groups and feedback from nearly 200,000 New Yorkers. Here now to talk about the plan's goals and its implementation is the city's Cultural Affairs Commissioner, Tom Finkelpearl. Welcome back to WNYC, Tom.
Thank you very much.
So what is the goal in creating this cultural plan?
New York City is the biggest local arts funder in America, by far, arts and culture. After the federal government, there's New York City, and there's really nobody in third place. But we've never comprehensively looked at the cultural offerings in New York City, where it happens, where it doesn't happen. And so we went out. We had 418 meetings, I think, with tens of thousands of people to really take the temperature and see what people feel they need, what they have, what's great about the cultural life, and what's lacking.
What do we mean when we say cultural life in New York City?
So when we talk about arts and culture in New York City, we're not just talking about, arts organization, fine arts, et cetera. We're also talking about zoos and gardens. We're talking about the for-profit world and the non-profit world. So there might be a music club where a musician works, or a for-profit theater on Broadway and a non-profit theater off Broadway or whatever. It's really a cultural ecosystem. So this is a comprehensive plan that gave us a really kind of 360-degree understanding of what's happening in arts and culture in New York City.
It is an ambitious plan. It covers a lot of issues, from affordability to arts education to artists themselves. Implementing it will involve a lot of different agencies, the city council, advocates. What needs to happen to make the plan a success?
In 5 years, if the cultural life of New York City is still as exciting, resilient, and fantastic as it is where it's currently existing, and those parts of the city and those communities in the city that don't have as much cultural offering, if they have more and we've kind of filled in the gaps, that's a success.
One big goal is to make cultural institutions more diverse, both the people attending as well as the staff. And one thing we heard from Mayor de Blasio is that diversity will be a factor in funding decisions made by the city. So tell us a little more about how that will work.
Yeah, so the first thing that's going to happen, we're going to ask those institutions how they address diversity and inclusion and equity on their staffs and in their programming. That'll be one of the questions amongst the questions that they have to answer, and that'll be taken into consideration in their funding. We're also going to ask cultural organizations to report on the diversity of their staff. And when we say diversity, we mean racial and ethnic diversity. We also mean disability and gender identification. So that'll be all the first year, reporting on their diversity and this new question. And then the second year, we're going to be requiring the cultural institution group to adopt diversity and inclusion plans. So we're going to spend a lot of time this year talking to everybody about what plans work, how plans work, what's effective, and then requiring the big institutions where a lot of our money goes to adopt these plans.
Some artists worry that the plan won't do enough to create actual policies that will make the city more affordable for them to live and work here. What will this plan do to tackle the ongoing affordability crisis in New York City?
So there are a couple of aspects of affordability for artists, and one is, It helps to have an affordable studio. We are committed to building hundreds of affordable studios. That's an ongoing thing. The other thing is just straight up money to artists, individual artist grants. That's going to be tripled in this budget. So there's going to be $1 million extra of grants to artists.
And the plan has short-term goals and long-term goals. When should we start to see some evidence of success on each of those?
So, the short term, this is a city report. Short term is within the first year. Medium term is within 4 years, and long term is 10 years. So there's stuff where, we're rolling out initiatives right now. There's stuff that's going to be happening, in the fall. We're going to be starting a cultural cabinet. So some of the kind of coordination stuff is going to happen immediately. The grant making will happen this fiscal year, to the individual artists. There's going to be a lot of stuff, I think, happening quite quickly.
Tom Finkelpearl, New York City's Cultural Affairs Commissioner, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Context of White Supremacy. Folks in New York should be elated. Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Thursday, July 20th, 2017. So I have been told. This is our weekly broadcast, Workplace Racism. This is specifically, exclusively for victims of white supremacy. If you have figured out these are the things to do so that you can be successful. If you're self-employed, quote unquote, successful, you can make as much money as possible, not have any problems, don't have to worry about being demoted, fired, denied promotion, accused of not being a team player, chastised for not talking too much. You have figured out I don't have problems with any of that stuff. Things are great for me on my job. I get my raises, extra bonuses, in fact, cushy office. If I need to get a transfer, I get it. No problems. I'm not harassed. Great. Outstanding. I hope you have codified exactly how you're able to get yourself in that position. And you should still be observant because I'm sure there are interesting things happening to the other folks who are not as, clever as you to figure out how to get to that position. You should still be observing what's happening with the other folks around you. I would presume whites are still being terroristic outside of not targeting you directly. So dial in the number 641-715-3640, the code 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Number again, 641-715-3640, the code 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Certainly, any of the black people, victims of white supremacy, who have not figured things out that well, if you're having any difficulties, problems on the job, dial in. Be great, or not great, but certainly I think a lot of folks are always eager if they have suggestions, any input that might help you figure things out on the job. If you're dealing with some sort of problem, white people not doing their job, any sort of unwanted touching, whatever the issue happens to be. Even though I know it's not comfortable, it's certainly not fun to talk about that sort of thing publicly. But I do think it's very constructive, one, because it's not just isolated to you. Racists terrorize black people worldwide in a variety of different manners. And I think when we start to open up and talk about the ways that we're victimized, particularly on the job, I think we'll see like, oh, so many folks have gone through the exact same thing or something very, very similar. That's been the pattern that I've seen for years now. I think that's why. And then I think, too, even if you're just reflecting on your own work history, which I encourage and tell people, hey, let's do that as well. You can dial in and look back on, previous times where you were working and maybe you didn't have a quality understanding of racism. The same way that you can reflect on those experiences, just talking about with other people what happened to you on the job, other people can, kind of process what happened and give tips on what to do if this happens again, or even what to do moving forward in the situation. I think that can also be helpful. I know for me previously, when I was very confused about racism, I think as many folks have said, I also was in a position where I didn't have folks to talk to from a counter-racist perspective in terms of how to deal with things on the job. So feel free, dial in. We always enjoy offering suggestions that hopefully are helpful, and also encourage folks to follow up. If you dialed in previously and shared a thought or an experience, something that happened on the job, let us know how things unfolded. Also, remind folks, if you're not able to participate via phone, you can email. We can keep it anonymous, so you can just, get to whatever it is that you want to share. If you have commentary on something that was discussed this evening, or if you want to share your own situation, you can email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Drop me a line, and we can read it on the air, and you can get lifetime feedback to your situation. Some of the things that I wanted to address before I get to callers. It seems so, I guess last week was so busy. This time last week, I was preparing to hear Dr. Vanessa Grubbs at Lake Forest Park at the bookstore. So we had the shorter workplace racism, then I ran upstairs to participate in the book discussion. So this week seems so tame where I don't have all that running around to do. Also, O.J. Simpson, I think, got parole today. How about that? Might be landmark. White people might be out in the streets rioting and looting. I think I mentioned last week, I wrote a piece about black male educators and the difficulties that they experience. That's certainly workplace racism. We've had a number of black male teachers dial in over the years. I mentioned that I got such interest in terms of black male educators wanting to contribute when I was writing this story, which has been published for a while now, that I said, hey, we could do a program because there were people who responded after I had already published the piece. And I mentioned it. I know Mandisi, I think I'm mispronouncing it, my apologies. But I know he had emailed me about, getting black educators to participate, and I was waiting to hear back from other people. I really didn't know what to say because I think I had maybe posted something on social media and I mentioned it on the program, and I hadn't, really heard a whole lot in terms of participation in the program except for him. So I waited, and then I did hear a black male educator in Canada, and then a black male educator in Australia contacted me, and they said yes, they would be interested in participating. So I was not quite expecting folks from beyond the U.S., but white supremacy is a global problem. So now that I have heard back from other people, I will put out dates and times. If you think you would be interested in participating, drop us an email. We'll try to see if we can do it before the end of July. If not, early August. But I'll send out emails. You can, email me if you want to be included, untiljustice@gmail.com. If you know black male educators and you think they might want to participate, feel free to invite them or tell them to contact me. Moving forward, I think I've said this consistently over the years. We are, slowly encroaching upon a decade of broadcasting. I have said that a lot of times, if I speak to a listener off air, a lot of times it will get to workplace racism quick, like within the first 5 minutes. And that happened again this week. One of our former guests, one of our favorites, Chantel, she was on the program. She has a white parent, non-white female with a white parent. She asked, in fact, how crazy last Thursday was. So last Thursday, I'm on location, right, at the Lake Forest Park. We do workplace racism. I run upstairs. I do the book club or the book discussion with Dr. Vanessa Grubbs. I head back home, have a deadline for an article that I have to write that article, get things finished. It's morning. The sun is up. And I get a text from Chantel, who says, oh man, oh my gosh, you've got to call. And so Friday unfolds. This is all Friday morning now. And so she says, I'm going on my lunch break. And so I'm like, what exactly is going on? And she says, on my job, there's another non-white female who is not present. White people are there. They're talking. They're, in a very giddy mood. And she says that they've been calling this other non-white person something other than her name, right? And they're, making a joke about this. Ha ha ha, calling her whatever name they've made up. And so they say, you should get a nickname too, because we call you, I forgot what it was, but they call her some other name when she's not present, and she didn't know this, right? What do white people talk about when no non-white people are present? Dr. Welsing. So this is what, she's thinking about this. She did not know this. And I think she had even admitted to me previously that she felt she was not as codified as she could have been when she started out at the job, and she's trying to do better. But that has made it a little bit more challenging. And that's certainly something that I can emphasize. If you go into a workplace, if you are still learning, you don't get access to counter-racist information until later on while you're at the same job. It can be very, very difficult if you have been just laughing and joking and talking it up and going out to lunch and birthdays with the whites on your job. And then it's, whoa, wait a minute, I get better information. And it's, you mean Susan is a race soldier? You mean Bob is a race soldier? Or at least in my mind, I should be thinking that they're probably racist. And that's, wow. Okay, and so when you start making those changes, it can be very, very difficult. White people can have a lot of questions, and I've even seen where a number of people have been terminated because whites became so unnerved with the shift in their behavior to being more codified. So that can certainly be challenging. But with the name thing, we talked about that consistently. Even listeners who shared, who've given advice before, just being very firm. No laughing, no joking. You don't have to yell at anybody. You don't have to curse anyone. But excuse me, Helen, Bob, my name is Chantel, and I would prefer that you call me that every time. And in fact, if you call me something else, I'm probably not going to answer. I try to call everybody, or not I try, I do call everybody here what their name is. I don't make up, any nicknames or titles for anyone else, and I would appreciate it if you could show me the same courtesy. Thank you so much, Bob, Helen, whatever. But something like that where you're very firm, very direct, and then follow through with that 100%, where you don't answer if they're calling you these other names. And then you can even, if it gets that far, you can do the same thing. When you have meetings, is it acceptable for us to call people names other than what they want to be called, even when they have clearly indicated that they don't want to be called any nicknames? Is it acceptable to continue to violate their wishes? You can just bring that up and ask and, deal with it. But I don't think it'll get that far. I've seen, if you're consistent about it, you're not responding. If they're calling you other things, you ask nicely, and you aren't name calling or nicknaming anybody. I've seen pretty consistently that will squash the problem. But that did happen this week, Chantel. The human resources, I have had people contact as well about that. I guess the thing to do at this point, if you're interested, if they're non-white people, black people, if you have some expertise with human resources and or just interest in wanting to codify information, resources, material for victims of white supremacy that would help them in the area of employment. Folks have responded globally for this as well. So I guess I can forward everybody's emails, and you all can take it from there in terms of how you want to respond, coordinate if you want to set up a call or whatever to move forward with things. But you can, again, email me, and I will pass the information along. Also, for today's program, because I do think policy and procedure is extremely important. Everybody who participates in the program, the question, have you read your policy and procedure in full for your place of employment? I guess if you are not employed, if you want to use your most recent place of employment, but have you read your policy and procedure in full And then I guess in addition, were there any problems, anything significant? But have you read in full? And I can answer myself, yes, Gus, I have read my policy and procedure in full for Atlanta Black Star, writing with them, absolutely. And even there were problems where, had to go back and readdress something. That, is common. Just things, policy and procedure, very, very important. That is not something that you just want to be careless about. In fact, I can remember with that one specifically, I remember allocating time in my daily schedule so that I could sit down comfortably with a beverage and read my policy and procedures slowly just to make sure that I understand. That's not something that you want to be careless or reckless about under any circumstances. In fact, I think it was Forbes. They said that their recommendation is that you read the policy and procedure before you even agree to take the job, which makes a lot of sense to me. I think I will read one report and then I will get to callers. So one report is from let's see, pick it up. I'm not sure. I think this is non-white female, but we'll continue. I work in the field of clinical research. I'm often tasked with going to sites to vet them for upcoming clinical trials. Today I visited a site in Florida. I met with the site's research director and the doctor who would like to conduct the study. I have a general overview of the study with the caveat that my company sends people out to vet sites who don't specialize in the same therapeutic area the study is for to reduce bias. Upon making the statement, both the physician and the research director began asking me pointed questions about the science of the study, which they knew I didn't know. I maintained my composure and began to ask screening questions so that I could further assess the site. When I asked if they had physicians who were specialists in the fields to whom they could refer subjects, an adverse event arose. They became hostile and accusatory. They began to argue with me about whether or not I was seeking out other physicians to conduct the study. They literally would not let me get a word in edgewise. Because of the nature of my job, I am required to keep a poker face. However, with the onslaught of needless accusations, I ended up raising my voice to state that the question was just a question. Do you have a specialist you refer patients to for certain conditions, cardio and urology? They then stated that my question and explanation were unclear. I have been conducting visits for this trial for the past 2 months and have never received that type of response. Could you offer any advice as to how I could better handle situations like the one above in the future? Wow, okay, so we have a solicitation for suggestions or input. So I think this is a black female. I could be in error, but I think this is a black female. That I guess would change perhaps if it was a male or female, but I think this is a black female. So she goes to this site to do the interview. She's just asking questions. This is a normal part of her job. These whites get hostile, angry about her asking questions and begin making accusations, and she's asking for input about how she would deal with this sort of situation in the future. You were there, so I would say number one, black self-respect means having respecting your level of comfort. In terms of your profession, in terms of code of conduct, in terms of these meetings, you said you've been doing this for a while, right? So you know what the normal decorum for these meetings are, right? If these are questions that you have asked before and people answer the question, no problem, proceed, okay, this is a strong deviation from what is normal. And you, I think, also know your level of comfort. If you're there and you're not feeling comfortable, if they're just accusing you and being tacky and yelling, I think you have every professional right to stop the procedure and just say, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, whatever it is, I'm not feeling comfortable right now. The tone almost feels hostile to me, and I'm going to take a break just to kind of excuse myself. Maybe we can all calm down and resume and kind of get to the root of what the problem is. But just the way that things are headed right now, I am not comfortable continuing. Just excuse yourself. You can contact your supervisor or what have you and let them know, exactly what happened, and just use your own professional judgment. But I'm a big advocate of that and not continuing. If they're going to just yell and be tacky and racist in terms of the way that they're communicating with you, and particularly if this is unprovoked and that, I'm just asking routine questions here. This is my job. Come on, let's be professional about this. If you have suggestions on how you would deal with this in terms of, I guess, maybe diffusing it or yeah, she kind of left it open. So just suggestions on how to better handle situations like this in the future. You're doing your job and the people you're working with become hostile. In this situation, they were white people become hostile. Folks have suggestions on how you would deal with this. The number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943 pound. Let's see. Folks who dialed in with a hand up line should be open. We have suggestions on how you would deal with this. Line.
Are we specifically only commenting on solutions to the problem presented, or can we give our account for the week?
I would prefer at least at first if folks have any suggestions for this person who wrote in, and then we can move forward to other things. If folks have any input, any suggestions.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, this is Red from Ohio. I definitely agree with what Gus said about, just taking a moment to just collect yourself and then reapproaching the situation. I've worked in a few call centers where customers have gotten real belligerent. Sometimes there's even a time where I was actually called a derogatory term. And just having that moment to, in my case, put the customer on hold and just take a breath or what have you, and then go back to the situation. But then also understand that I'm assuming, if I heard correctly, that these were doctors. So, of course, they should have a certain level of professionalism. And I know with the code that I'm trying to stick with myself is maintaining, always maintaining professionalism. Somewhat of a, I guess maybe people would describe it as a monotone tone of voice, but I do definitely understand if it is a female that we're speaking about, she finally couldn't take it anymore with the barrage of questions, but that's definitely something that I would do. And then also in my experience, when speaking to people who you assume should have, I guess, some sort of sense. Just going back to just also like Gus said, this is a part of researching if this particular site would be good enough or this particular site would fit the qualifications for this research study. These questions are required, and that's actually how one of my previous jobs actually taught us how to respond to difficult customers. Just reconfirming that this is a part of the agreement. This is a part of the policies and procedures, and maybe hoping that would actually bring down the tone. That is, if it's not just something that you're just saying out of curiosity. That's all I had to share. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Red. Outstanding. Other folks have any suggestions, questions for the person that wrote in? Again, I think this is a black female. If I'm incorrect in that, person who wrote, you can let me know, and then we can maybe amend suggestions if that is not the case. But I think this is a black female.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello to Gus, the host, and to all the callers and listeners. Let me just get some clarification. So this is a situation that this young lady, these are like her fellow co-workers that she's having this with, or customer or something? Or
so it seems she is employed to go out and meet with these, I guess these are potential clients, right? So she just goes out to ask questions, right? I can even read it again. So she works in the field of research. She's often tasked with going to sites to vet them for upcoming clinical trials. So it seems she would not be, these aren't her coworkers, right? These aren't the people that she's hanging out. She's just going to different random sites, so she doesn't know these people or have a relationship with them. So in this instance, she met with a research director and the doctor who would like to conduct the study. I have a general overview of the study with the caveat that my company sends people out to vet sites who don't specialize in the same therapeutic area the study is for to reduce bias. Upon making that statement, both the physician and the research director began asking me pointed questions about the science of the study, and the aggression went from there. Does that help?
Okay, yeah. Wow. Whew. Well, kind of like the young lady before me, hold your head up, put your shoulders back, be who you are, have, like you say that, your Black self-respect, and, speak to them. If it becomes hostile, maybe like you say, sometimes you just might want to back up. Let's be quiet for, some seconds, kind of, and that sometimes some things that are said might need to hang in the air for some seconds. Because, sometimes people will hear what they say, and I just say, you kind of pull back, let it hang for a couple of seconds, then proceed, and if this behavior continues on, then I'm like you, there, some expression of, I'm not feeling comfortable with this, even that, there's just like this feeling of, like you say, a level of hostility. I don't know why. I'm just doing my job. And if so, maybe like you say, the suggestion of maybe we could take a break for 5 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, let us recollect ourselves and let's go back to it, and, see how that works, because, like you said, she's a Black female, these are white males. I don't even think we have to discuss, that dynamic, you know what I'm saying? But, the one thing I would say, keep, like I say, that, that Black self-respect about yourself, make eye contact, because the problem is, it probably is the fact that, for the white man, here's a Black woman here, oh my God, So I would just say, you go in there, share yourself, like you say, Black self-respect. Sometimes the hostility gets to a point, maybe just quiet down, let it hang in the air for a couple of seconds, then go back. Then, like you say, if there's still hostility, then that, expression, I'm not feeling comfortable with this because I'm feeling some hostilities here. You might even want to have that and say that. I'm feeling some hostilities here. What is the problem? And then, to see, go forth with it. The other thing I would suggest also, too, is that you have to check the state to make sure it's legal to do this. You just might want to taping devices, to be able to tape some of these. I hate to even use this word, but some of these encounters or these encounters, so that, at the end of the day, when she goes back to assess her day, and especially if she begins to have problems, because you, Gus, know, and anybody else on this phone, on this call knows that, you could talk to somebody, you can get out the door good before they are on the phone, calling your boss or calling whoever you answers to, with their prevarications, lies, And so I think, she might need to find out what is the law in her state, and she might have to end up, if she can do it, like I'm in Ohio and I know you can tape without people knowing. So if she, has that, then, get her some devices and tape some of these encounters so that when she has to go back to talk to who she has to answer to, she has this information that hopefully can help her and keep her from getting fired, So that's what I would suggest. And I'll mute myself. Thank you for taking my call.
Back-to-back callers in Ohio. Right on. I think with regards to a Black person, this particular type of situation where you have a Black person who's coming in, I wouldn't quite say this is a Black person in a position of authority, quote unquote, but the Black person questioning a white person. That's generally not the way things go. It's generally the white person is questioning a black person. What did you do wrong? Where were you at such and such time? That sort of thing. To have this black person being the one to come in and question these white people about whether or not they're going to get to do this study, which is probably a lot of money that they'll get for this, I would suspect. I could see where they would be uncomfortable, or I could see how that could prompt them to practice racism. Who is this, uppity nigger woman going to come in here and, question, ask us all these questions? Who does she? I could totally see that sort of thing happening. And they just get real hostile, real aggressive, real racist, just calling it what it is. And again, blacks, in my view, and just calling, this is unprofessional. This is unprofessional. This is not acceptable. And I do not feel comfortable proceeding and reporting it as such, that they were not behaving. They couldn't even conduct themselves in a professional manner. I couldn't even get a word out to ask a question, and I was just being attacked and accused. I've never experienced this. I would report it exactly in that manner. I've never experienced this in my time doing this work before. I'm able to ask my questions, they answer, and we move forward. This was hostile and aggressive, and they didn't answer my questions. They questioned me, in fact. Like, that's exactly the way I'd report it. Any other suggestions for she's asking how she could better handle this situation? Any other suggestions?
Now, can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Thomas in New York.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you're saying that these people need her to be able to guarantee a loan or something?
No, this is the field of healthcare. These were doctors. One was a physician and one was a research director that this black female was speaking to. And so she has to go to these different sites. Some sort of medical site, I presume, and she vets them, right? She goes there, she asks them questions to make an assessment about whether or not they should use this particular site to do whatever study or research they're going to do. And so go ahead.
No, I was saying, so they need her.
Well, I guess they need her to come and do their assessment. I guess they need her to do a positive assessment of their site, I guess, so they would be the one to conduct the study, if I'm understanding it correctly, if I'm explaining it correctly. They would want and need her to do a great assessment, like, yes, this site is great, and they can do the study.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So in any case where I'm in that position and these people are being ruled, then I will give them the worst assessment I possibly could. That's how I would do it. And I have my own scenario, but that's what I would do. I wouldn't even hesitate. I would put in my report, every little thing I could find wrong that I could, that would make them not be able to get whatever they want. It's very, very rarely that we're put in a position of, like you said, power, but they need her, So I would not be taking any type of disrespect from these people. I would be expected to be treated like a white person when I walk in there. Y'all need me. And if that's not how I'm treated, then I'm going to treat you like a white person would treat a black person, even if they weren't being rude. I mean, my line.
I see. So if I'm understanding it, your code is just, hey, if you're going to be nasty and rude, it's not going to be any sort of me making a whole lot of compromises. It just means that you're going to get a negative evaluation and unlikely to get our business.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't come out and emphatically say that, but I might hint toward the fact that the way this is going, this isn't looking good for you guys. I don't know if I need to step away and come back and you guys change how this interview or whatever process is going. But as of right now, you don't have my support. And see if they change. White people generally, when they need black people, they can be very, very, very nice.
Well, I will have to get additional detail from her to make sure if she's listening, she can let us know if it's that sort of thing. Because if it is that sort of situation where she can just give them a negative evaluation and keep it pushing, Absolutely. I would just go that route. Like, it might be more complicated than that or what have you, but absolutely. If it's that sort of thing where you have that level of discretion, or even in my view, that's a part of the assessment. If this is how you're treating me, why would we want you to do, work with other clients and what have you? Some of them might be black people and what have you. You might be practicing racism in the same hostile way, doing the trial if they ask a question, what have you. So yeah, that makes sense. She would have to give me more detail, like I said, about how, if that's even plausible in this situation, but I do understand. Do you have any other suggestions how you would deal with this? Or folks ready to deal with their own situations? Wait a minute, making sure. Oh, might get additional detail. Is this the caller that...
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm the person that wrote you about the
Yes,
letter.
black female. All right. You're a black female?
Yes, I am a black
right
female.
On.
So it's kind of along the lines of what Thomas New York said. I do have to make an assessment about the site, and I actually did put in my report that, they need to send someone extremely experienced in that area to that site to inspect it, because, if a person is not as experienced, they'll get a lot of pushback. So that was how I kind of left it. Really, the companies that were contracted to do the inspections for, they go off of a hard and fast criteria about what facilities the site has and how much experience the site staff has in that area. So it's kind of tough to just blast them and say, oh, we're not going to use them because they were terrible. But I figured I could put something in there to kind of alert people that these might not be the friendliest individuals.
Got it. Is it feasible in your line of work or in that type of situation for you to just say, I'm not feeling comfortable right now and I'm going to excuse myself from this discussion for the moment, and then we can resume and see if we can pick things up in a more constructive manner? Is that feasible?
Sometimes it is, but that's generally when you are that site's monitor. That's what my job is. So part of monitoring is doing routine monitoring visits. So you would definitely more than likely get in a situation at that point where you have to step away from a situation, because if you have findings at the site, negative findings at the site, sometimes they'll give you a lot of pushback on what you found and telling you didn't see what you saw, or you saw what you didn't see. So it's that kind of thing. But at that point, you have a relationship with them. But generally, when you go on a pre-study visit, people are nice. They will offer you just about snacks. Can we feed you? Can we give you water? They're really nice and really accommodating because they want to get that business. This is the first time that I've ever gone somewhere for a pre-study visit and the people acted like savages.
Well, I'm glad you had the correct terminology on hand to describe what was happening to you, savagery. And just go back to the refrain. I think the big thing is for us to not be surprised, whether it's whites in a medical coat, whites at the garage, whites in the classroom. If individuals classified as white are involved, there's going to be some savagery along with whatever else the business is. You just expect it so that you're not surprised. And then I think exactly as you wrote in, what's the best way to handle it when the savagery begins?
But thank you for taking my call. I found your show 2 years ago, and I do listen to workplace racism a lot. As a black female in the science field, I have tons of past stories from when I was less aware of just incidents that have happened. So I really appreciate your show, and I thank you for reading my letter, and I thank everyone for their feedback.
Absolutely. Glad you wrote in, and keep us informed. Sounds like if you got a lot of stories, you could even write a book. There have been quite a few black healthcare professionals over the years who have written about their experiences. I even think we had one on the program, Dr. Gus T White. He's at Harvard. He wrote a book about his career in the medical field and all of the racism going all the way back to when he was in school, and the racism he was experiencing from white educators, doctors, all the way through. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, if you wanted to address your own situation, lines should be open. Feel free.
Now, Gus, I know it's impossible to prove white people are being racist at the workplace. But is it possible to prove that non-white people are practicing discrimination at the workplace, do you think?
You said, is it impossible to prove that non-white people are practicing racism?
Non-white people are practicing, are discriminating against black people at the workplace. Do you think that's easier to prove than white people are, or do you think it's the same logic that applies to both?
I would think it would be easier to prove it, just because I think white people would have greater resources in a system of white supremacy. They would have greater resources to defend against that allegation, and it seems like they already have a code for that, whereas I think most black people do not have the same amount of resources to defend against that allegation, and most black people don't already have a code in place for how you deal with that sort of accusation, and particularly a code that involves multiple people helping you successfully trump any allegation of racism. Most of the black people that I come in contact with, I don't think they already have that together, but I could be in error.
Because at my job, I was we were told had a meeting, they're shorthanded, which is not our fault. And they told us after July they were going to hire more people, and they would start approving people's vacations. So I waited till after, July to set up my vacation. I put in my paperwork, and it got denied. Now, since I've been working here, it seems to me like everyone that comes from another country, they could get a vacation to go to their country. But everyone black, they have to fight for their vacations. And I don't feel like I should have to fight for my vacation. So instead of going through the union, my plan was to send a nice email to the president citing the company for practicing discrimination against Americans. In the sense that in order to get a vacation, you got to come from another country.
Oh, was that the end of your report, Thomas in New York?
Yeah, that was my plan. That's what I was gonna do. But I didn't know if that would backfire on me. It'd be like if I say that if I was to ever be in a workplace situation and say I'm thinking a white person was practicing racism or discrimination against me, we would be in human resources the next day having a meeting, wanting to know what happened, and of course, a lot in time to speak to that white person so they can get their story straight. Then they'll come in and, but I'm not sure if that same thing will happen either so-called Latinos.
Who is in charge of the vacations? Like, who gets to make the decision about who's going to get time?
A Puerto Rican lady.
I'm sorry?
A Puerto Rican lady.
A Puerto Rican lady. Okay. And so who would be the person that you would have to go make a report to that this quote-unquote Puerto Rican lady, that she's discriminating, that she is not
the way it works, Gus, is I work for the hospital, and we have a union that also works for the hospital. However, the management the hospital hired does not work for the hospital. They're an outside company that they pay to manage the site. So pretty much I can go to the hospital and make my complaint, and that was what my plan was. However, I know that if my boss doesn't like that, and she has gotten rid of people in the past for doing that. However, she can't do that to me because I'm in the union. Those people weren't.
I see. Okay. I think somebody just said last week, sir, if it wasn't last week, it was this month, they were talking about the union not being helpful to black people. But I would...
It's not.
Okay. I would amend...
But it will keep your job, though, but it's not helpful, like, as far as I can't go to them and get a remedy. However, if my bosses were coming after me, there's certain procedures, the protocols they would have to follow, as per the union.
I see. Okay. Well, I would only amend my answer from before about, is it easier to pursue discrimination, white person, non-white person? It sounds like at the end of the day, you would still have to go to the same people for a remedy to the situation, even if it is this quote-unquote Puerto Rican person who is, I guess, making the decision about who is going to get time off. It sounds like directly, indirectly, white people are still going to have a decision about whether she would be fired or reprimanded or whether she would get in trouble for how she is allocating time off. So I can certainly see why you would have reservations about whether you would want to pursue this. If what is happening, it sounds incorrect, I certainly would say something about it. It's not even in the interest of getting anyone terminated if we can just get the problem solved so that everyone is getting, allocated vacation or leave time in the same manner. That would be grand. And even you can even start right there. What is the procedure for granting time off? And just go right down the line, asking questions. What is the procedure? Is everybody subject to the same procedure when getting an evaluation for their time off? Is this protocol being followed? If there's a deviation from this protocol, what's the procedure for remedying the situation? I would just go down the line asking those. Asking those types of questions. Is it, I guess you were concerned thinking if you do this, is this going to cause some type of retaliation, right? You were saying from them making it more difficult for you is the question. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding.
I don't really fear their retaliation. But my premise is that they get away with a lot of things, and the white people at the top don't know they're getting away with this. So what I thought is by going over their heads, by going to the hospital, not going through the union because they're in cahoots, going over that process, going to HR and making my complaint. Now this will be informing the white people at the top. Ultimately, they're the ones that make all the decisions. So if I'm going to get either way, I sent her a notice yesterday telling her I wasn't asking her, I was telling her the days I was taking off. So I'm not going to be there between those days. So, that's how they, there's a track record of people who have been denied vacations, just taking them and coming back to work and nothing happened. So I was just letting her know, that I was taking those days. And if, she has something to say about that tomorrow, my plan was to go to HR and inform the white people at top that this isn't the way that this is supposed to be working here. This isn't what you're paying these people for. They're not doing the job as per the procedures indicate.
And if she does not say anything tomorrow, or a month from now,
that's like her. If she doesn't say anything to me tomorrow, then that means that it's still denied. So I'm gonna go to the white people at the top. Unless she tells me tomorrow, listen, I'm going to give you your vacation, then that's the only, recourse that she could have for me, because I'm not going to be there.
Got it. That makes reasonable sense to go get the white people involved about the discrepancy that's happening. Is that reasonable, folks, thinks? If she does not give the leave that she seems to be giving to other folks who are not black, to go get white people involved to see if you can get a remedy to the situation?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
To this specific point, it's a lose-lose situation, because whenever you go to these white people, because from what I'm hearing described is that she identifies as a white person that just speaks Spanish. So and I know we should never assume. I've heard the jokes about that, but when you just hear this type of stuff, you just have to think that they are all on the same page. So I wish you the best of luck, brother, and hopefully everything works out for you. But I have my own workplace racism that I wanted to put out there and see what y'all thought about it. Is that okay, Gus?
Let's see. Can give me 1 moment just to check to see if folks had any other input on Thomas's situation. And I do think that was an important point, that this could just be a white person who speaks Spanish. Other folks have any other input they wanted to give on Thomas's situation?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. Red in Ohio.
Yes. I'm sorry. I don't know if I maybe had missed something, but I was just curious to know what was in the policies and procedures, especially if Thomas is seeing that, people, I guess immigrants, are able to go on vacation. And I know, like with my job, basically the vacation time is just put out all at once, and we all get to schedule it. So there's not one single person who is actually scheduling it. So I'm wondering if these people are putting in vacation time after Thomas, and then they're getting approved because they want to go back to Greece or wherever. Just, I don't know, I'm thinking of that country, but he's putting it in and it's getting denied. I'm wondering if there's something in the policies and procedures about that. And then I've never been a part of a union, but I've also heard about unions, and especially since Thomas had said that basically the union and the hospital is in cahoots. I'm wondering, like other people have said, if this is just going to make it worse, because if the union feels like you're, like he said, going over their head, I'm just wondering what would be the repercussions of that. Is the union maybe going to use this to practice racism against Thomas? So if he has a complaint in the future, they might not get to it, or they just won't hear him out at all. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
What's the leave policy, I guess, first up, Thomas, in New York?
Well, first I'd like to say the union is black. The bosses are Spanish. They could not pass for white. The people that get to go to their countries are Colombians, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Costa Ricans. They all get to go home. Even they let the Haitian brother go. They let the Filipino guys go. They let the Vietnamese people go. Every time a black American says, "Oh, listen, I'm gonna need to take a week off," we gotta go deny, go through the union, go through a process to get it. Then you end up putting yourself in a situation where you might have to work, do some things to get and I'm not going through that. I already told them I'm not going through that. The lady told us at the beginning of the summer that after July we'll be able to take our vacation. So that gives us all a month to take our vacation. So to me, it doesn't even make sense I'm worried about whatever time someone else has. I only have a month to do this. So I just felt like if they want to play hardball with me, I'll play hardball with them and go right over their heads and get someone that they can't say nothing to make that decision.
Did that clear it up for Red, or anybody else have input on Thomas in New York situation? Assume so.
That cleared it up for me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Hopefully, Thomas in New York, he can update us maybe as soon as later this weekend or early part of next week. We'll get the update on how this situation unfolds. I neglected to follow through on what I said, so that the people that we've already heard from, Red in Ohio, have you read your policy and procedure at your current place of employment?
Yes, and actually, the thing is that I kind of feel like I've been one of the people out of all my team, whether it's white women, non-white females, because it's mainly non-white females and then a few non-white males, but I'm constantly reading because we have two separate policies and procedures. So basically, things that would relate to like human resources, and then basic what we call procedures as far as how to do the job, and constantly telling these people that this is not in their procedures, if you need to update this. And so yes, and that would kind of segue into my observations from my workplace racism, but I'll hold off for now if someone else wanted to go first.
Right on. I'm going to circle back to the black male who chimed in on Thomas's situation. I'm going to get his commentary as well, but I'm just making sure all the folks who spoke. Thomas in New York, have you read your policy and procedure for your current place of employment?
We're not allowed to get the policy and procedure, but of course, I figured out a way to get it and got it. So yeah, I know the policy and procedure, and that's why I know that they're not following the policy and procedures when it comes to this. And the fact that we, at one point, a black female who wasn't a full-time employee, she was per diem. She went, actually this started because I got hired right away as a full-time employee. And she decided to write a letter to the president of the hospital and say that, it wasn't fair, that's the word she used, to that people have come in after her that's gotten full-time and she's been there for X amount of time and she's still a per diem, which changed the policy, which caused them to enforce the policy as far as per diem, becoming all the per diems were able to become full-time, but not before that girl got fired. And a meeting was held with the boss that denied my vacation, saying that anyone who goes over her head, that's not how she's not going to play that game with them and all that type of stuff, like threatening us, which is against the procedure as well. So I've adhered to what she said. I haven't gone over her head, but I haven't had any reason to until now. So, I just ain't no Puerto Rican going to tell me I ain't taking my vacation. Like, you better bring a white person down here to tell me that. That's all. That's the way I look at it. I know how things work here. But I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Policy and procedure, very important. Just that alone, you can see, as Thomas just said, you can see when people are not following their own stated policy. Let's see. Our other caller, female caller in Ohio, have you read your policy and procedure? Current policy and procedure? I don't know if she's still with us. And our other caller in Ohio, are you still with us, ma'am? Just checking to see the folks who participate. Just want to know if you've read your policy and procedure. Maybe she's not with us. I'll get everybody as we go. The male caller who spoke on Thomas in New York's situation, have you read your policy and procedure?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I have. And what I have noticed here in Tennessee, I'm Jerry from Chattanooga, Tennessee, by the way. I'm sorry about that. I didn't let that be known. I've read mine, and what I have noticed is that because when I first started there, I asked for it several times, and what they do is they put it in small writing that it could be changed at any time. So that's one thing that I would like to tell Thomas from New York to be weary of that, because when we come to them and we make what's in the policy procedure or the handbook, as what is called here in Tennessee, they change that to adjust to how you operate off of that. So be careful about that also. Well, not be careful, but just be weary about how they manipulate certain words and procedures.
Right on. Great point to keep in mind. Absolutely. I have seen that where whites, and even with myself personally, I've seen where on jobs where black people were doing well or were just comfortable. It wasn't that they were exploiting anything. They weren't getting over on anybody or finding a way to cut corners and doing the job and just being happy on the job. And they would come and change policy and procedure just so that you could be a little less comfortable at work. Again, has nothing to do with productivity or getting things done, just so you can have a little less joy as you do your work. Like the earbud, I think Mr. Steele mentioned, no earbuds, although I guess some people could say that that's a productivity issue. I guess I'll get Red. I do see other folks. I'll get Red, and then we'll start to get some of the other people who haven't spoken at all. Red in Ohio, did you want to share your workplace racism incident for this week?
Yes, thank you for taking my call as well. And just what I was saying about the segue into my workplace racism, it seems that what the suspected racists do on my job and frequently do to me, because like we have discussed, and even when I was more confused, I always wanted to know, how am I supposed to do this job so I can try to keep the job as long as possible? So the dangers of white women, I've actually, been encountering that more so this week. There has been one white woman, she's basically like I don't want to say an overseer. I don't know why that was the first thing that popped in my mind, but she could basically grade my work to see if I'm doing everything right per assuming the policies, these procedures that we have. However, it's based on her interpretation. So I had to go back and forth with her because she even though she can basically grade my work, she cannot keep me from basically getting a couple of extra nickels if I do everything that I'm supposed to do. So what has been happening is that I will point within their own policies and procedures, give them the date. I can even give them the date that they updated them because, of course, these people, they update their policies and procedures, and I've even actually had to help them rewrite some of these procedures. They update them pretty quickly pretty frequently. So I went back to her, or I had to actually go through my supervisor who had to reach out to her and say, this is how we're supposed to do this particular task, and this is my argument to back it up. Now, I've mentioned in the past that I have a new supervisor, racist by, the compensatory counter-racist code because of his outside affiliations, basically. So he, at first, would side if he likes to hide the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's also the one that said, well, even though this isn't he didn't say it's not in the policies and procedures, but when I asked him a question that, this is your work, you need to figure it out. Well, I gave him all the information as far as what I need to do, as far as this is the reason why I'm completing this task, the way I'm completing it. And temporarily, he sided with me. But then I think it was either today or yesterday, I did get an email saying, okay, well, we need to do it basically how this white woman said to do it. Mind you, and I'm actually learning now that and fully understanding that no matter how long, how well he's been doing the work, it does not matter. If a white person, especially with these suspected racist white women, if they feel that you need to do something a different way, then you just need to go ahead and do it a different way. So at first I was kind of I started to kind of get upset, but then I just felt like, what, this is a job. They're telling me to do the job. I'm going to do this job how they say to do it because I need these couple extra nickels. So that was basically how they, and also, despite the fact that I have to now do the task the way that this white woman said, they're like, oh, well, we'll get the policies and procedures updated. Some of these things that this white woman has came back to me about, they still have not updated the policies and procedures. So that was the first thing. And actually, some of this, I think I have 4 other instances, and these are just observations, and I'll let you know how I reacted afterwards. So I had a meeting, and we were going over a situation, and there was a situation where it seemed like, these white women in the meeting, they were basically heading up the meeting, and they were talking about how would we handle a particular situation. And the situation involved what they kept calling, and I don't understand how they got to this other than the fact that they were just basically trying to be tacky. Apparently, there's a person who had purchased a ticket for another person, and a female. I'm assuming it's a male who purchased a ticket for a non-white female. The female was coming from a non-white country, and they made up like this whole tacky story about, oh, well, the non-white female was trying to take this white, or I'm assuming this to be a white male, I'm not sure, but trying to take this white man's money, and also, this is probably like a mail order bride, and just getting the whole, everybody else in the meeting involved with it. And I just basically just sat there, and I'm grateful that I know more now than what I did before, because I know before I probably would have been, chiming in, oh yeah, she probably was doing that, and oh, she probably saw a picture of him and didn't like him or whatever. And I just thought that this is so ridiculous. But the worst part was, I don't want to say the worst part, but the part that it kind of got me a little frustrated was that the whole thing started out as, how would you resolve the situation? What would you think about the situation? I answered that. And then, but they still had to go on for at least 5 minutes about this story that they had to make up about this particular situation. So extremely tacky, and all I did was, like I said, I just sat there and just listened to the nonsense, and I was just thinking in my head, we could have moved on to this other part of this. We could have moved on to the next situation. We could have moved on to the next problem, but they had to get it out and get all their laughs. Another thing that I had was actually brought to my attention was the fact that I don't smile. And I've noticed, I feel like it was mentioned earlier in the show that the less confused that you become, it seems like your attitude does change. And I have noticed from several, mainly white women, that they've noticed that my attitude has changed. And the less confused I become, the more that I've just try to make sure that I'm just more professional than anything else. I don't smile. I'm extremely, like I said, sometimes I'm even sound like I'm monotone, because I'm not, I try to really just put across that, I'm here to do the job that you paid me for. I'm not here to, keep going back on the past, and, in which in some ways it has made it a little bit harder for me, but at work, I do listen to the archive, and I was listening to One from Other Sons, and they mentioned how, and I'm still in the beginning, they mentioned how, whites want you to be a cheerful, subservient, basically a subservient slave, and that's how I felt that they're treating me. So, like, the white woman who commented about me not smiling was the same white woman who disregarded my answer to the question that she asked and went on about this whole mail order bride. The last thing is that I feel like I am having a little bit of an issue with somewhat anti-black thoughts or anti-blackness thoughts. I have spoken about this non-white female in the past, how I've been trying to be as helpful as I could and, provide her information, but then I'll have to go back and, really explain the information rather than her just actually just trying to first get some basic understanding of it. Like if I send her an email with some information, her trying to get a basic understanding of it, and then ask me, secondary questions, and not, okay, well, what is this about? Why are you sending this to me? Things like that. So what I've been doing is I've just been, if there is some important information, then I just don't include her in it. I just basically just try to let her find out on her own, which I know is not right, but I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know if I have that. I really don't feel like I have a lot of time to go back and teach her things that, if she were to ask me questions, then, try to explain it really quickly. But if she wants to go in, several minutes, I don't really have that type of time. So I recently, took a couple days off, asked her to help me out with a few things. She said, okay, well, I'll probably get to that. Came back, those things were taken care of, which is something that I can potentially get in trouble for. However, my supervisor hasn't said anything to me about it yet, so I'm not going to bring it up. So today she asked me, she mentioned that, she could use some help. And then also she asked me a question about some issue that went on, and I sent her an email saying, okay, well, I already knew about the issue, here you go. You can just look over the email and just see the information I've gathered. So she said, well, you need to, hey, well, in the future, can you go ahead and just let me know when you find out these issues? The route that I took, instead of, because I immediately I wanted to say something smart aleck, but I know if I'm not going to say that to a white person, then I should not be saying that to her. So I just didn't say anything at all. Now, I don't know if that's the best route to take, and it also when she decided to ask for some help, I was actually at the time helping out another non-white female. I didn't feel so bad, but I've just been kind of just not saying anything at all. So those are my observations for the week, and thank you for allowing me to share.
Very interesting. Lots of detail. I guess with the last situation, I do think, or at least I definitely appreciate the black self-respect in terms of thinking, would I say this if I was going to be responding to a white person? If I wasn't going to let them have it and try to say something slick to a white person, then I'm not going to do that to this non-white person either. I think that is tremendous example of black self-respect, because I think a whole lot, I think Mr. Fuller even says we have gotten off real cheap, non-white people doing that, where a white person and we have nothing to say, everything is quiet. Non-white person, we are ready to curse them out, them, grandfather, mother, anybody else that they can pile up, and that's something I definitely think needs to, we could do better. So I appreciate that. That racists make it difficult in the workplace. I would think generally any other situation, if this person, and it might just be that she has a different style of learning. Some people, they do better if they can have someone explain it to them as opposed to just reading it for themselves. That's just the style that some people have of learning, which wouldn't be a big deal, but it is costing you time since that's not what you're being paid to do on the job. It could be they didn't train her adequately, which they do to a lot of now. It could be a variety of situations, but at the end, as you stated, it's taking too much of your time and energy on the job. And I don't have a better solution to offer presently than what you have come up with in terms of just you have to restrict what information you can share with her, because if you share it, then you might have to, that might cost you 15, 20 minutes, who knows, time, 10 minutes that you don't have explaining the material to her. So unless someone has a better suggestion, I do not. That is just unfortunate. And I guess, trying to acknowledging, I know Pam would appreciate that as well, acknowledging when we have those anti-black thoughts and just trying to minimize and decrease them. That also product of the system of white supremacy. I think too, the first situation that you started out, just kind of recognizing the workplace situations when you don't want to get into too many brawls about how they want things done. Hey, whatever I can do that will keep things flowing without me having problems. This is the way that they want it done. We'll just do it that way. I think that can be the best route to take for some things on the job, particularly where you're not being mistreated and, fine, whatever. This is the way we'll do it. Let's just get things done so we have no problems and can keep things moving. Before, I think Jerry in Chattanooga also said he was going to share. I just wanted to get in also. We had a listener, got a new job, pleased with the employment thus far. She said part of her codification, the job, she starts at 8 a.m. Her code, she arrives at 7:30 a.m. For the job, if she's running late, there at 7:35 a.m. And she said she's made this her code to get there, and even employees starting to know and count on her being there that early. I think that is a great bit of code. Reminded me of Mr. Fuller. He talked about working, I think, for 30 years his job, and he was never late. One day, there on time, and just making that a part. I know he recommends that with counter-racist codification to just be known for that, be known for being on time when you're supposed to be at work, reliable, you're there early every day. Just be known for that, that can be very helpful for you being able to keep that job, keep getting those nickels. Jerry in Chattanooga, did you want to share your own situation, sir?
Yes. Can you hear me, Gus?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. I had passed this around with a few of my friends, and I don't want to say that you're going to love this, but you're going to find this very amusing. Last week, me, myself, I like to think of myself as a hard worker. I go into everything regardless of who's involved. So what I like to think of myself is that I take everything that I do to the utmost. That way that no matter what's going on, there's no problems. Even if somebody wants to say something against what I'm doing, it's hard for them to do that because I pay attention to detail and I do it as quick as possible. Well, this particular incident that I'm going to tell y'all about tonight is that I got transferred. Somebody requested me to go to a different department because it was a white person stealing expensive lights from the company that I work for. The company is Miller, and they have a few things that are only associated with them, so you can't get it nowhere else. And they found out that this white guy was stealing lights, and he was selling them on Craigslist and on like the Facebook marketplace. So they fired him. Well, excuse me, they didn't just fire him. They cuffed him, took pictures of him at the job and what have you. You know, they kind of spread that around. But I ended up replacing him. Well, what ended up happening is that this is the shipping dock where this was happening at. So it was more than just him, but they hadn't caught the other guy because he was part of management. He would write down certain things so that when the guy who was actually taking the stuff off of the property, they would be able to get away with it because it was being brought back as either a return or a defective part, and he was selling that. And somebody from the job ended up finding out about it. So I replaced him for the meantime, and it was me, a white guy, and a Mexican guy. The Mexican guy drove trucks for the actual company. He didn't have nothing to do this particular day. And the person who's over the shipping department was a white guy, but his father is actually the CFO of the company. He does a lot of drugs. He passes out. He's got beaten up a number of times on the property by drug dealers or what have you. So he has a long history. And this is actually about him. The young white fella that's the drug addict, this guy, what we do on the shipping department, we ship where I work at is called Miller Industries. We ship out records. We make records and we ship them out. And we was ratcheting down the records to ship them off to Japan, England, just all over the world. And this little junkie dude, he walks up and he places his genitals on the Mexican guy's shoulder. And when the Mexican guy just kind of froze up and didn't do nothing, he walked up a couple more steps, and like his genitals was right by his face. And then he stood there for like 10 to 15 seconds. So like I'm bugging out. I'm bugging out while I'm watching all of this because I just kind of seen it at my peripherals, and then when I seen what was happening, I was like, whoa, what are they doing over here? So I'm down on the ground now, and I'm using a staple gun to staple these units to the ground. And this same white dude decided that he was gonna walk towards me. Now, me just seeing what just happened and knowing what kind of guy this white guy is, I jump up immediately and like I went off. I'm not gonna use the language that I used out there on the dock, but I let him know very quick and very fast, don't you never in your life ever walk up on me like that. I don't care what you're doing. You need to ask me, could you please move, excuse me, or what have you. And this guy, after I told him this, I could see the fear in his eyes. But even with the fear in his eyes, he still wanted to tell me that he was just moving to the side. He didn't care nothing about what he had just done or the implications of any of that. And that had bothered me for like 3 or 4 days. Like I was real upset. Now, when I pass by this guy, he don't even look at me. He looks at the ground or what have you. And like I had all the intentions in the world of just slapping every piece of color that show up in his white skin clean out his face. But I have 5 children, so I can't, not to mention some of the other stuff I done since I was younger. I couldn't do that. But I had to let him know explicitly from the get-go that I'm not going through that. But by the time that I was telling him this, he reacted to me like it was a problem that I had a problem with what he had done beforehand. And that's my workplace racism for this week. Gus, thank you for taking my call. I'm gonna put myself on mute.
Wow. Jerry in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Delectable Negro. The savagery, again, you cannot be surprised. And I mean, we've heard this before. I think retired firefighter, I think, is with us. He's talked about that before, being in a workplace situation. And I think this was with the fire department, no less. Racist males putting their genitals on a black person, a black coworker at the fire department, repeatedly. These sort of shenanigans. That's why I say all the time, you want that reputation on the job for just being serious. I'm serious. I don't play in all the pranks and shenanigans that go on in a workplace. Even some workplaces, fire departments, where it's supposed to be real serious. This is life and death. You can still have that sort of thing happening. Get a reputation for that. That way, you just said it, make it very clear. And me personally, I think that it is constructive that you said something immediately to make it known that that sort of behavior would not be tolerated, directed at you, to just make that very clear on how you are going to be treated on the job. And I mean, I also think it's important that these types of incidents are shared, just because I suspect a lot of younger people, I know I wouldn't have been expecting this type of behavior. Like if someone had told me, do you think you'll have to deal with whites trying to put their genitals on you on your job? Do you think that's something that you'll have to plan for, how to avoid in the workplace? I would have cracked up laughing. Like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? Like, no way. And then I've heard it repeatedly now. So apparently I didn't have the correct understanding of what it means to be white. Yes, this might be the type of thing that you might have to be on guard about on the job. Very important, and I think it sounds like you did a solid job. I know firefighter can set me straight if I have, fabricated something that he didn't share on the program before. And any other folks have a code about how you would deal with this sort of sexual terrorism on the job?
Greetings, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you were accurate. Like I said, you have a very good memory. But yeah, that happened at a fire station at the city of Miami Fire Department, and it made the news, local news, pretty big down here years ago, and eventually, I think that non-white black male did something along the lines of either suing or something, and he did get some kind of restitution to it. But I don't know if too many people would go through that indignity, and that's probably the nicest thing I can say, just to be able to get something out of it. Basically, what it was. And this happens in employment that is heavily male-dominated. You can expect, in other words, for example, you can expect something like that if you are a firefighter, police officer, quote unquote police officer, enforcement official, but that's the best thing to call it. Let's say professional athlete. You can expect something like that can happen. And the way it starts is by you not taking the people around you, you're not taking the environment serious enough. You just think it's some sort of thing where, okay, I can relax and play around and whatnot and go for it and be a part. In order to be a part of the group, I must go along with it. And first it'll start very subtle. It'll start very subtle. You know, it may be a situation of quote unquote cracking jokes. You know, and then it'll go to more softer means of touching. And then it goes to that horrendous level. And that's what took place with that person. The caller who he was doing the right things, because I've been saying it all the while. Nip it, male or female. I mean, I know some of our male non-white victims, and some of the ladies may be a little bit reluctant, maybe quote unquote against their nature to do it, but you got to get it. You got to get it from somewhere, because racism, white supremacy, we all know is nothing to be playing with. And the moment that takes place, you may put your job at risk in some certain cases, but I mean, it's already at risk anyway. You know, you need to tell that person or persons that this will not happen. This will not happen. If it kind of like caught you by surprise, then you make sure that it is known that this will not happen again, and there's going to be some consequences. You know, and I did it to a point to whereas although I may wanted to keep the job, but if I had to get physical, and when that person saw that I was enough to put that at risk, even that it stopped immediately. Whatever they thought that I was going to be going for, it stopped immediately. You know, as far as that concerned. And that's basically my remedy. And like I said, you have a good memory, Gus. Yeah, I was listening.
Hard to forget genitals being placed on someone. That is sticks out in the brain.
Yes.
Any other folks have, suggestions for how you would deal? I hope no one else has any stories where they have seen or been victimized in this way, but any suggestions on how you deal with this sort of thing? Flagrant sexual violence in the workplace, sexual aggression, in my opinion.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I have never experienced anything quite like having someone place their genitals on me, but I guess I have been a victim of, sexual harassment from time to time in my career. So I really don't have any suggestions because I know I handled each of those situations horribly, looking back, because, I wasn't as aware and I didn't read my employee handbook. So I don't know.
What would you do now that you have learned a little bit more and you read your handbook? What would you do now?
Oh, document everything, date, time, incident, follow the chain of command to escalate, issues to, and document each time contact was made, and also just be prepared to have to walk away, because I found that sometimes it's just easier to do that. I know for mental health purposes, some fights are not worth fighting. Just find another plantation to go to.
Keep that resume up to date, regardless. That is great. That is why we're still learning, so we can do better in handling these types of situations. And thank you so much for reminding me, Jerry in Chattanooga. Did you document that this happened, even though it didn't happen to you, but just that you were witness that this did take place in the work environment? Did you document this?
You know what, Gus? I did not, but I can never forget that day nor that time, and I am actually actively writing that down. And what I have found out is that the white guy who done this to the young Mexican guy, and also because I'm not even sure if he attempted to do that to me or not. He just got to a point where he was too close for me after I had just seen that I had to stop it. So I'm actively writing that down right now, because that's something that you like Thomas from New York, retired firefighter just mentioned. You do not forget these type of incidents. What I have realized, though, is that while I ride around, because like I said, I got moved to the shipping dock. When I'm maneuvering around the shipping dock, picking up stuff, getting ready to ship or what have you, this guy does not look at me whatsoever. Every time I look at him, he looks at his feet. He does not want to, I'm not sure if it's acknowledge me or just want to look at me in my face or what have you, but he does not look my direction whatsoever. And I've seen him talk to some of the bigger people in the company, and they don't say nothing to me, but I'm sure that he has brought this up about how I approached him. But with the way that I approached him, I think that has a bigger context for them getting a lawsuit. So they tell him he was wrong, and just as long as he don't pursue it, then just let it be. But then again, I have sort of a reputation for speaking up for certain things within our company. So people tend to stay away from me anyway. He just wasn't aware of that until this particular incident.
That it reminds me of Dr. Cambon. He was talking about the movie featuring Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee, just mentioned. Anyway, he was talking about that movie, but there's an important scene where I believe Sidney Poitier's character, he senses that something is incorrect about the situation, which helps him save Ruby Dee, the late Ruby Dee. And he said it's very important as black people that we are attuned to our senses. You noted that this race terrorist was too close to you. Like, just that right there, in my view, is black self-respect. Not denying that, not ignoring that, not trying to pretend that it's okay. No, this guy is way too close for me, and I need to say something about that right now. I think that's really important as well for black people. Just recognize when things are making us uncomfortable. Either we don't feel safe, or it just does not feel like, this does not feel like a positive environment right now. Something is off, something is wrong. There's a potential problem, potential danger that needs to be addressed. Make sure we take that seriously as well. I think that's a big part of this system, conditioning us to ignore those senses and feelings that we have about our own personal well-being. Anybody else have commentary on, dealing with this sort of, again, flagrant sexual violence?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening. Gus, everybody, listeners, callers, this is The Voice. Glad to be back.
Have you read your policy and procedure? Policy and procedure, have you read yours?
Yes. I've read my policy procedures. What I wanted to say is that sometimes they, I think it was Thomas in New York. I was trying to chime in earlier, but I was muted. But what I was trying to get to him to let him know is, like, in your policies and procedures, I know before, because I told you guys that I had 3 different manuals, and each one was, every time they update or they take something out, they'll give you the book, but they won't tell you, so it's on your own to read it. And I know one time in the book, it told you that I was going to tell Thomas in New York to look and see when you're dealing with your supervisor, when you make a complaint, it said before, like, they had 72 hours to respond to you, and if they didn't respond to you within 72 hours, then you could go to the next level above their head, because they always want you to follow a chain of command. And then when they edit it back out, I guess a lot of supervisors must have not been meeting the deadline, you know, probably through workload or whatever. They rewrote it and said that, as I think it was something like, as far as the supervisor, give the supervisor enough time to respond back in a timely fashion, and the supervisor will respond back to you in a timely fashion. So it really didn't give no window. So a timely fashion could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. So, you know, you have to read your policies and see, because sometimes they play games like that in order to protect themselves. So, yeah, I just wanted to speak on that. And then the gentleman that just spoke a while ago, I think it's very important. Like I said, I'm dealing with a situation, too, in the process of, you know, my lawyer and everything, where, remember I told you guys before that it's very, if you can, it's very helpful for you to get an ally. Like, even though it's an ally to you, they might not know you're using them as an ally, but I always try to talk to anybody on the job just to feel them out, to see how they are, and use their information. Because like I say, people like to talk. Things happen to them, and they want to vent to somebody. And the gentleman that just spoke, he said he witnessed it. He witnessed the situation that happened to the Hispanic male. And I've witnessed things, too, that happen to other people on the job. And what I would do I would call what's that company? The headquarters? Yeah, the headquarters. And I would call, they have like a line where you could call them and you make complaints. You don't have to be, you could be anonymous. And I used to complain about everybody else's complaints. When they tell me things, I used to call up and complain, especially on that supervisor. I would just put in a complaint. So I would tell him, once you find that out, put it out there, because once every complaint is up there, no matter if your name is in there or not, it's documented as a complaint, and it tells the date and the time. So it's not like, you know, you're making this up out of the blue. It's documented, and it's phone records. So that's what I just wanted to say to you guys, and I'll mute my line.
Interesting. Did other folks have suggestions on how you would deal with this before we move forward, and other people can share their commentary? Right on. Other folks that we have not heard from at all, if they're callers we've not heard from at all, lines should be open. Proceed. Just make sure you let us know if you have read your policy and procedure.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Awesome. This is Ken Steele, and I am reporting live from Pomona, California. And when it comes to the policy and procedure for my last place of employment, I definitely read that. And interesting note, if you recall me discussing that workplace, when I did bring up specific policies and procedures to management, they told me to, quote, screw the manual. And to hell with the manual. So if you are more informed about the rules and regulations as it pertains to your job, be advised that, I guess, expressing this knowledge can find you in a position where you're at odds with your management, and they will become very, very upset. And then you can use that opportunity as a chance to document their reactions. As for my report this week, the current workplace that I find myself in a lot more these days is the comedy space. And last yesterday, I experienced yet another incident of suspected racists, suspected white supremacists, basically losing, losing their control in the environment. There was actually two different sets of white people that were removed from the premises that we were performing in. The first white woman, she had a really bad set, and nobody was laughing at any of her jokes, and she looked at, she gazed upon the audience, and with a huff she said, "This is the most traumatic experience I've ever had in comedy," and she stormed out the door, and everybody, I think that was probably the only funny thing that she did the entire evening. And then there was another suspected racist. He was very drunk and belligerent, and drunk and belligerent racists are pretty standard in the comedy space, but this guy, he decided to get on the microphone, and he wasn't telling anything resembling jokes, and then eventually he said the N-word on stage, which, to my surprise, the younger people in the room, the younger victims of racism who tell jokes in the room, they were the ones who kind of led the charge to physically remove the guy. A glass was shattered, and fights had to be kind of restrained, but the owner of the establishment, he was kind of wishy-washy on, whether this guy should be removed. And then finally, the guy that was the suspected racist, he said something to the effect of, "They shouldn't have given this bar to you people." And at that, he was just kind of Jazzy Jeff carried out and tossed out. So, that was just kind of what I experienced just yesterday in the comedy space and in the comedy workspace. And ever since I've been out here in California, I've just seen the suspected racists. They just have very low levels of decorum. I'm just curious as to if this is going on across the country or if this is just isolated to this market. And at this point, I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Wow, that is I'm familiar. That can be a dangerous environment. The comedy club. You'd be surprised how many brawls break out at the comedy club. Yikes! Alcohol, environment, the anti-blackness. It can be quite combustible. Do not miss those days at all. My empathy, you, Mr. Steele, and stay safe in those environments, man. Other folks, did you all have other folks that we've not heard from before? Any of the people that dialed in that we've not heard from at all? If you had commentary, either commentary on what you heard from before, or if you want to touch on your own situation, proceed. Are there folks that we missed? Folks that have a hand up that we've not heard from at all? Looks like it. Folks, too many hands that are up. Folks that we've not heard from at all have commentary?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right. Greetings, Gus, and to all the callers. No commentary on what anybody else has shared so far. But I have my own thing to share. Right now, I'm in the process of reading over my manual and the attendance guidelines for my employer. I was issued a verbal warning today by my manager for the attendance policy, and it's very ambiguous now that I'm reading over it. One thing that it says in bold is that it says specifically that your manager has the leeway to consider extraordinary circumstances as well as patterns of lateness or absenteeism that may not be clearly spelled out in the guidelines. So I think that that's really important to say that your manager has leeway. I know you talked about the word discretion as well, and what I noticed is from the discretion, one thing that it says here is that it says if you arrive 20 minutes or more late to work of your scheduled shift, then that is considered what they call an occurrence. But for what my manager submitted to me for the verbal warning, there hasn't been one time that I was more than 20 minutes late or 20 minutes late at all for my scheduled shift. But I guess with that leeway that he has, he was able to say, okay, if it's 5 minutes or more, and then I'll go about it that way. So you have, this many occurrences within 3 minutes because I decided that it's 5 minutes or more. Just wanted, I guess, any type of suggestions on how to proceed. I did not initially sign this document, and I still haven't signed it yet. When we had our meeting, I asked that I could review it so that I can kind of think over it and look at it in further detail. And he was reluctant to say yes, but he agreed. And so I'm just kind of following up on everything now. Thank you in advance, and I'll mute my line.
I think this is one of those that we've heard before. I'm glad you mentioned the term discretion, giving likely race soldiers, like the person who's giving you this verbal warning about attendant or being, I guess, late. They have the discretion, the leeway, as it said in the policy, where they can say, oh, well, there's a pattern. It's not an occurrence, quote unquote, but it's still a pattern because I say so. And you've been here. You were here 5 minutes late this day, and 4 minutes late this day, and 3 minutes late this day. So that is a pattern, and we're going to give you a verbal warning for tardiness. I would want to know if this has been done in a similar manner, because if this is leeway, so if other people are 4 minutes late, 5 minutes late, are they also getting a verbal warning, or have other people gotten a verbal warning? I'd want to know that sort of information as well. I'm not saying you have to ask him particularly, but I would be curious about that to see how often this sort of thing happens. Also, what I mentioned before about the female, she got new job. She's supposed to be there at 8. She gets there at 7:30 just because this is about what you can expect in the system of white supremacy. Just anything. If you're supposed to be there at 3 o'clock and they see you punch in at 3:02, oh man, this is another one. He's not going to be dependable. We need to go ahead and let him go. That's kind of what we're dealing with. So I would try and be as proactive as possible about time thing, particularly now at this point, and being there way ahead of time, and you can use that time to get yourself together in terms of the write-up that's been issued. I think we dealt with this before, Thomas in New York, and quite a few other listeners. I know sometimes, I think even some of the callers that have shared, sometimes they can out and out threaten you that if you don't sign the verbal warning, we're going to terminate you right now. I've seen where that sort of thing happens, where they can be really punitive about this, and you got to have your signature there. I think some people have also added that they wanted to include a paper, if this is supposed to be some sort of document that's in your permanent work folder, where you can include your own commentary if you think the policy was vague or was not well explained, or if they couldn't document the days and times that you were late, or just any other concerns. I think we've even had some listeners who have implemented that policy. Folks have thoughts on what you would do in this situation. He's been assessed a verbal warning for being late, and he did not sign. He asked for some time to think it over. So how you would proceed with not signing the verbal warning? Any questions you think he should ask in terms of dealing with the situation?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's read in Ohio.
Yes. I just wanted to say I definitely agree with the comment about even if you do decide to sign the verbal warning, definitely put down your own reasons or what have you to why you contest it. And also what I have done, like I've spoken about with my workplace racism, is somewhat subliminally asking other people, not including any names, like with me. Well, my supervisor really won't give me any help. So I would ask other people, have you been able to go to the supervisor and ask them questions? So, like maybe in your case, hey, if you notice someone, because for the most part, if you work around people, you notice if they're late or not. Just notice, like, hey, are you Have you noticed any changes in the attendance policy? Hey, I heard that some people have gotten a warning. Have you heard of anybody else getting a warning? Maybe going about it like that to see how far or how limited his discretion is. Thank you.
Good one. Any other thoughts on this verbal warning, how you deal with the write-up and moving forward?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Now, I recall I heard a suggestion from Neely Fuller that I thought was really interesting that I think could apply to this situation. He suggested that, anytime you're on the job and you are being, given something to sign, you can put a formal request in writing for a delay of signature. That way you can use the time in the delay to learn exactly what it is that is being addressed. And in that time, I would use it to go into question mode. What is this verbal warning for? What are the, next successive of warnings about? What are some steps that you could take to help me resolve this situation? Is this a situation that normally warrants verbal warning? What would I have to do to escalate this situation? You just start asking endless questions. If you can, put these questions into writing, ask them one at a time, and delay. And then, when you finally do get to signing, now this is something that I would do. I didn't hear Neely Fuller suggest this at all. I would just suggest to, put in writing that, you still have you have questions about this and that you are very confused about what it is that you're being asked to sign, and if you could get a further delay. And if they say no, then, sign it, but it's, in writing that it's known that you are confused. So, I just, I wouldn't take a verbal warning lightly. And if you're signing something, I don't know how verbal that is. I think that sounds written to me. So, I would definitely check my handbook to see what comes next, and then I would come with just a list of questions, and I would just ask them endlessly. Thank you.
Good job. Any other suggestions in terms of the write-up, how you deal with that and moving forward? I'm a big advocate, again, of being as proactive as possible, just knowing if you're a black person, if you're 30 seconds late for the job, white people might use that as an excuse to write you up. Just being mindful of that and really being about that. Job is supposed to start at 9 a.m. I'm here at 8:30. And just making that my counter-racist codification. That's really, I think, the best way, the safest way that you can ensure that you don't have these types of problems, because white people, they are going to make this a problem for you. That's already in the car. They have planned to make this a problem for us. Any other suggestions on how you would deal with the write-up moving forward, or if there's another meeting about this verbal warning?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the voice again. I just wanted to let him know that I had a situation like that. My supervisor that, like I said, I'm going through the legal terms with. I noticed that my supervisor, I don't know if he knows his supervisor like that or the guy that's writing him up, whatever authority he has, but if you've been around your supervisor and you know the little sneaky stuff, the little deceitful and lying stuff that they do, then you can add that into your report, because my supervisor, I caught him forging one of my papers, which he got paid for, and I didn't get paid for. So that's one of the big pieces in my lawsuit. But what I did do is whenever he wrote me up, I always said that this is an illegal write-up. I was forced to sign it or threatened. My job was threatened. And I also put that my supervisor falsified documents. So I made sure that every write-up that he did before he fired me, I made sure that I wrote that in there. I think the context of what you write in there is very key in your situation. And I'll just say, if I was in your situation, I would write, I just feel like this guy is always targeting me. It's like every time he's always pinpointing on when I'm here. You know, we have a lot of employees. It just doesn't seem like it's, in his realm to just keep track of all the employees, but he seems to always keep track of me. It's something in that nature. But like I say, I'm just giving you what I would do in my situation that I'm going through right now. And I'll mute my line.
Documenting can be very important. Other folks have suggestions on how you would deal with this verbal warning and signing or not signing the document, or the amended page that you add, amended writing. We don't have any further suggestions on that one. And again, remind folks to follow up, because I think it's important just to find out what things work. These saying this works, saying this does not work, I think that's always a benefit. Are there other folks that we've missed completely, folks that we've not heard from at all, who have a hand up, who had a situation that they want? Oh, matter of fact, before we even get to some of the other callers, we had other people that wrote in as well. One of the folks that wrote in, one day last week, I arrived to work, got out of my car, and noticed two white women talking to each other outside of our building, a decent distance away from the entrance. As soon as I walked towards the entrance, they followed behind me, and one of them spoke loud enough to ensure I would hear it. She said something regarding big black cows, and I believe she was substituting cows for another word, penis, to either get my attention or to make sexual remarks in a codified way to the other female about me. That sounds logical from what I know. We've already had one race soldier putting his genitals on another person who may have been a non-white person. So this is mild in comparison. And that's why I said, even if things are going well, this person didn't write in about, having any problems, or they've been taking his money, or like he's been a victim of wage theft. He didn't say anything about that. So things could be going great for him on the job. I hope that is the case. But that does not mean that there are not other things to be mindful of that are happening around you on the job. Just, be aware of that and still be cognizant. If there are other non-white people there, it's likely that they're being mistreated. Even if they're not being mistreated, as we already heard, white people are going to be in some savagery regardless. So you can keep an eye out. Oh, there's Ted. He's stealing the lights again. That might be useful information that you can use and keep track of down the road. Just, be alert, mindful while we're on the job. Are there other folks that we've missed completely? Or I guess if you had commentary on the big black cows situation, you certainly can comment on that as well. But other folks that have commentary they wanted to share? Anybody that we missed, make sure. Anybody that we missed completely have commentary? We got everybody?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. There was I think it was an incident, but I think that was Thomas in New York. I was trying to remember, what was that one about, Gus?
I think Thomas in New York was having the problem with the vacation not being distributed adequately. It was a quote-unquote Puerto Rican person. Not sure if this is a white person or non-white person. I'm not, but a Puerto Rican person who is in charge of the vacation, and it seemed that the black people who were born in the U.S., that they were having difficulty in getting vacation, whereas everybody else, they could, get their vacation and just move forward. And he was saying that he submitted to get his vacation time, and I guess it was not approved, and he said he was going to take it anyway. And if it's a problem, then he's going to go to the white people. He's going to go to the white people that are in charge and notify them about the situation. And I guess it was, do we think that that's going to work out? Could this possibly cause problems since he's going above his direct supervisor's head and dealing with the situation? Just is how is that going to work out? Will that help remedy the situation? I at least hope that's an adequate synopsis of his problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I pretty much would agree with taking that action because having that knowledge and understanding the system of racism and how non-white people are definitely put in situations in labor and other areas of people activity where they can get into strife and conflict with each other to set focus on the white person who's in charge, even if you might not see them visibly, maybe like in some type of office area, just find some kind of way to get in contact with a white person who has power in that area. So I definitely would agree with that. And that reminds me of what I was going to share my own experiences. And I haven't completely read my employee handbook. Like, I do have access to it. It's like a digital file. Like, I think I was going to have it emailed to myself, email it to my own account, and just sit and look over it. It's pretty easy to get access to it. But to speak on that, like, we have only one black supervisor, and that was going to be like the start of what I was going to share. And I noticed he has been looking a lot more stressed lately, and I still make sure that I extend good courtesy toward him. Pretty much we've still been in good contact with each other, no conflict between us. But there's a non-white female. She wouldn't be classified as black, but I don't think she's being treated like a white person would. So she's a non-white female, and I've noticed that since this new white woman has started, I believe she has been targeting her, and I also think she and the new white clerk have been possibly targeting the black male supervisor by, I guess, criticizing the work patterns or the breaks that she's taking and how long the duration of the breaks are, because it's mandated that we only take 15-minute breaks in the morning and in the afternoon. So this non-white female was telling me that she was called into the office at least like 2 months ago by two powerful white people, with her and the black male supervisor, and it was about, I guess, how long she's been taking her breaks or how long she's away from her desk. It was something of that nature. And I say that to say that I spoke to this person earlier this week, and she said that this same white woman said that, I guess, she was dismissed from her department, and she's been there for at least a good 10 years. And she looked very saddened and depressed about this. So I guess she's going to be learning some type of different job title. And, I think she might feel a little uneasy about it. But, I just asked her, how is she doing? So she just pretty much opened up and shared that with me. And it's interesting because they could possibly be setting up this black male supervisor because this is his employee, like this person I'm talking about. And I haven't seen no other employee examined like this to this degree, where they're going to forcefully move this person to another department. And she informed me that they asked her, oh, well, how do you feel about this? I guess, so to speak. Like, I guess she had a choice in a manner. Like, that's just them being arrogant, white supremacists being arrogant in the power they wield over us victims. Like, hey, how do you feel about this? And I guess she just said she'll just go ahead and do it. And then it was something about she has, I guess, 8 to 10 months, I guess, to do something to like excel at it or do it correctly, like almost like this, forceful and some type of ultimatum or whatnot. Like she either does it and I don't know if she's terminated or what. She just told me that, well, we'll just go on from there. And that doesn't seem to make too much sense to me. So, I hadn't had contact with this person. But I think they could be also trying to set up the black male supervisor to possibly get him in conflict with his employee, 2 non-white people focusing on each other and not focusing on the white person. And two small other incidents. I was in the elevator, and there's this bailiff or sheriff. He was talking to this black female judicial assistant, and her and the other black female I noticed for years had to park in a parking space where it was distant from the exclusive parking spaces where all the judges and the other JAs park, behind the back door where all of the employees have to come in. But she's been parking in the exclusive spot recently, and I guess they got into a discussion, and the white guy says, "Oh, I see why you got on here talking like that. It's because you've been parking in that new spot. You think you're this and that." And I just got the mindset that he really wanted to say the term uppity. Like it seemed like the context and everything was very fitting for it. Like he wanted to use the term uppity, So she just kind of stared at him. And, they can just easily fall back and say, I was just joking, quote unquote. But like, that's how I read that interaction. And the last one I wanted to share was, it kind of touches on the sexual deviance of whites on the job. This white man, he is a tech person, like he works on the computers. And I guess he was helping fix some kind of computer program. And it was me, a black female, a white female, and a white guy. The white guy, I guess, fixed whatever was wrong with the program or whatever. So he looks at the black female and says, "See, I told you I could fix it." I guess they made some kind of silly bet between each other. Being that this person is confused, the black female, so says, "See, I fixed it." And she says, "Yeah, well, what do you know? I guess you did." So said, "I guess she was wrong." And then she says something else, so he says, "Well, what are you going to do for me?" or something like that. What are you going to do for me? And she just said, "Well, I'm going to tell you thank you." And that's it. So, I bust out laughing at him when she said that. So, I definitely think she caught what he was trying to insinuate at least. So, just little small incidents like that are very important to examine. And that's all I have for now. Thanks for allowing me to share.
That last incident that you shared, was that worthy of a cowbell?
I'm not sure, because this person, I think he does that to pretty much like a lot of the women in the area, like all throughout the office. I wouldn't say all of them, but particular ones. But as far as I know, I haven't seen the two of these people particularly interacting with each other very much. That was the first time I kind of seen something like happen between these two individuals.
I guess when he made the comment after the computer was repaired, what are you going to do for me? Any sexual connotation there, you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's how everybody read it. It was at least about 4 people in there. It was me, the older black female, that white guy, and a younger white woman. And the way I had read it, I was like, wow, like not surprised that he said that, because he's definitely daring in those type of things that he says. But I guess he might be able to, somewhat get away with that a little bit because he's, classified as white. But she responded with a tone like, hey, like, don't try to, make that attempt at me like that. Like, why did you say it like that? Like, the tone coming from both of them suggests that, I would definitely say.
So just be prepared. It happens so frequently. We talked about it so many times on the program, males and females. You got to be prepared because there's so much of that in the workplace, just in terms of how you're going to respond, what you're going to do. And it's, at least to me, it seems like the main thing is to not be surprised, just being aware of how prevalent this sort of thing is, that it can happen to you, and knowing in advance these are, strategies I already have in mind in terms of what I want to do or how I want to say. That uppity thing, standard, very, very common. Anytime it looks like you're doing anything other than cleaning a toilet or mopping the floor, like, oh man, this one has gotten out of his place. Now he's got this cool little parking place and the whole nine. And I absolutely suspect that they probably are coordinating to have the black male supervisor in conflict with non-white people that work there, work under him, or whatever the relationship is. Absolutely. And in fact, just the fact that you said he looks so stressed, that's pretty much what they have in mind. We're going to put this nigga in this position, give them this title, and then we are going to absolutely just crucify them so that they have no moment of enjoyment. We're going to make it so that every waking second that they're in this position, they're scrutinized, and we're telling them how they messed this up and messed that up, so that they are just stressed every moment of the day. I think that's what they have in mind. Anytime that, yes, we're going to make this nigga a supervisor. Other folks have commentary they wanted to share, what they just heard our caller, another one down in Florida, or if you had your own commentary that you wanted to share, feel free. Did we miss anybody? We got everybody who dialed in so far. Spectacular. If you have commentary, 641-715-3640 and the code 564943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. We have 3 hours. If folks don't have any commentary, then we can wrap, but max we would have a little more than 30 minutes left. So if you have commentary or questions, suggestions, do not wait until the last minute if you have commentary that you want to share. Did we miss anybody? I did have one more email. Did we miss anybody? Any other folks have commentary that they want to make sure they got in? Right on. One of the emails came from as a black educator, one of the folks who wrote me more recently about wanting to participate. He said, I'm a non-white male victim of racism and am emailing you regarding your announcement about the C.O.W.S workplace racism program, that you were embarking on some kind of initiative regarding education and are looking for non-white educators. I am a qualified teacher of 10 years and very interested in education for all, but specifically in challenges faced by young black students, especially boys, and their disengagement from education. I have a history of raising the aspirations and achievement of young black students. This is one of the folks who participated. There are several others. So if we do have black male educators who would like to participate in the broadcast for next, we have Stacy on this as well. If we do have folks that want to participate in the broadcast, then feel free. You can drop me an email untiljustice@gmail.com. There are several others who wrote in who said that they wanted to participate, both to talk about what they have experienced and some of their problems, and then just kind of trends that they see in education, things that just might be helpful to share with regards to education and education of black students in particular. So drop me an email if you want to participate. Again, we'll try and get this done late July, early August. The sooner the better. Stacy from the UK is with us. Had some funny business. I'm not sure. It seemed like Stacy got disconnected a time or two, and then I got dropped as well. But we should all be here. Stacy from the UK, good to have you with us. Let's see, at 3:25 a.m. Friday morning. Did you want to give us an update or have commentary on any of the broadcasts that you got to hear?
I didn't really hear much of the broadcast, to be honest with you. But so, can I give an update?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, as people know, I've been going through quite a bit in the workplace, and thank you again to the concern for the concern shown by the callers last week. But I guess I've had a better week in that things have settled down a bit. The race soldiers were notified on Monday morning that they are now under investigation, or that there will be a grievance coming. But I specifically asked for them to be notified because I wanted to be moved, and B, certainly if I saw anybody in the building, I certainly wasn't putting up with anybody aggressively pushing past me or anything else. Now, they haven't been given the details of the grievance that's coming, but they were notified that I would be moved. They would get the detail in due course. So I'm sure there was a little bit of surprise on Monday morning. I think probably Tuesday I got an email from somebody in the organisation. Now, this is a black female who has, again, been with the organisation for quite a few years. She's also taken another team through grievance, and she's had grievances against her. So her circumstance was slightly different to mine. And she has challenged quite a few of the things that were being said against her. But I think the way it's been resolved is that she's been put on some kind of, they've highlighted areas where she needs to improve her performance. So I don't think it's necessarily that it was found in her favour, but I don't know if they completely won. Sorry, the people who submitted the grievance against her completely won. But I think it's more in their favour than hers. But she had been quite ill with everything, given everything that was going on for her. And she's very experienced. So, it was just a load of concocted nonsense. The reason why, and just to say, she had also told me confidentially that, at one point she was suicidal because of everything that was going on. Now, she had come across to my old directorate, does know the director who pushed past me. And the reason why I mention it is because they certainly know how to use non-white people when they feel like it. So she'd been brought across to do some work for her. And, I think she's under the delusion that this assistant director who pushed past me is a nice person. The reason I'm bringing her up is because on Tuesday or Wednesday she sent me an email, and she doesn't email me. I see her around the building from time to time, but she never emails me. If we make contact, it's because I've emailed her. And she just wanted to know how I am. Is everything okay? So I've ignored her, because essentially the race soldiers who know that the grievance is on their way are sending out their spies and using people who they know that I talk to. And my assistant director a few weeks ago had seen us talking, and we were obviously talking for too long, so she came across. We were actually outside the building at this point. It was at lunchtime. But it came across and interrupted our conversation, and I just brought it to a close because I thought, even though, in hindsight, I thought, why did I walk away? But I just didn't want to be anywhere near my assistant director. So she's hunting down people who she knows I have a relationship with, just so she can send out her spies. Now, in terms of the black female, I'm not sure always that these race soldiers will tell them exactly why they're sending them out to spy. But, it's just too much of a coincidence. So I've ignored her. I will email her probably tomorrow, but just give her a one-liner, and just to literally say, I'm fine and how are you? and nothing more will be said about it. So I've moved into a new team anyway, which has been good for me. It's obviously an interim position, but certainly it's well away from the race soldiers, so that's been better. And I've got new projects coming in my way, which makes it a lot easier for me in terms of, potentially proving myself in a new role, but also building up my networks both internally and outside of the organisation, because one of the challenges that I'd had is that the race soldiers were trying to block me from any opportunities that would give me any profile internally within the organisation and externally. So this move is beneficial on a number of fronts. That said, I've had a new manager in. I think she started yesterday. And she sent me, we had a meeting. She referred to me as her coordinator. Now I've been with the organisation for over 13 years. I came in at management level. I'm not a coordinator. I wasn't appointed to be her coordinator. And I'm sure she knows better, but they just have to try it on with you. And so I think, was it this morning, I got an email from her, and she only started yesterday. And she sent me an email. We did have a catch up yesterday, and we talked about various people we needed to meet with. And she sent me an email this morning saying, about a particular person, and can I set up the meeting, and do I have access to her diary? And that literally wound me up this morning, and I thought, okay, I don't even need to be in this building. I can actually get myself signed off, because I'd seen the doctor and he'd agreed to sign me off. I just told him I didn't want to at this point in time. And the reason I'm not going to is because I don't want my opportunities that I've got coming my way at the moment to be affected by the other situation or the investigation. But I left it for about an hour so I could calm down. Then I just emailed the current director that I'm working to. I forwarded the email. I said, can we have a chat? Now, she was in meetings for the most of the day, but I know she picks up her emails in between. Needless to say, she didn't get back to me until the end of the day. However, the new manager who'd come in, they've obviously been in contact throughout the day, because sort of around lunchtime period, she came up to me and she said, did you get my my email introduction to somebody completely different? And I said, no. She says, oh, okay. I think I introduced somebody else by mistake, and this is another black female who's also in the team. Now, I don't see how she could have got us mixed up, certainly not by name. If she was mixing us up by sight, that would be one thing, but certainly not by name. And she said, but I'll go downstairs and I'll, reintroduce you. Or better still, I'll probably organise the meeting myself. So that told me that in between my email to the director and that conversation, that they'd obviously had a conversation, and she'd been put straight. Don't try and get me to organise your meetings. At the end of the day, the assistant director decided to respond to my email. And she said, I'm sorry, I've been in meetings all day. Do you want to have a chat about this? I said, oh, no, it's fine. I knew you were in a meeting. No worries. I'm working up the plan for this new project that I'm working on, which I'll run through with this new manager. Perhaps next week we can sit down and talk about what administrative resources we need for the team, and left it at that. It's just, they just have to try it on. And the way I'm feeling now, I would have put her in her place, told her, absolutely do not try it with me. But then, it probably doesn't pay to be so direct at times, but I think the message was received, and we can just sort out getting administrative resources. There's just a natural put it this way, they have to let us know who's in charge. It's just something that they try all the time. It doesn't matter who it is, which team you're working in, which organization. And I guess the skill is just how to deal with it without kind of losing your job or losing your emotions in between. But yeah, Gus, I'll stop there anyway. I'll probably come back with a couple of other things if there's time.
I know from last week, there was a lot of concern. You touched on it because when you shared last week, we could hear it, just the stress from dealing with all this was, I remember from last week, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were considering contacting the police because of the consistent aggression, violence in the hallways. Did you go ahead and contact the police?
No, I haven't done that as yet. I am actually going to do it. The only reason I hadn't done it is because I just I had a rough weekend, put it that way. Last week was pretty low for me mentally, and the weekend I just didn't feel up to doing much. But I will definitely be contacting the police. I have no qualms about doing that. I've already made HR aware that I was going to do so in relation to the young person. I hadn't spoken to them directly about the director. However, it was my union that I'd made them aware that I was going to contact the police. And I would do that just so I lodge it. But both incidents, should I need to come back to it in the future, given that, both incidents happened a couple of weeks ago, it's not, the fact is, I am dealing with it, and I guess they've moved me physically in the building, so I'm out of immediate contact. But yeah, it's literally because I just wasn't in the mood to be dealing with the police rather than anything else. But I guess it's a bit like if you have, I will have to manage the situation with the police because I do want the internal investigation to happen. But either way, I will lodge it with HR because I do want them to know just how serious I am, because a HR investigation is just that, a HR investigation. Now, they could sanction these individuals at the end of it, and ultimately, in terms of the policy, this would be, as far as I'm concerned, reading the policy, something which is could result in gross misconduct and therefore dismissal. But that will obviously be the result of an investigation. Now, that they could find in my favour, they might not. But either way, these acts are illegal, and those are criminal acts when you are assaulting people, as far as I'm concerned. So regardless of what the organisation said, I'm well within my rights to pursue it externally anyway. I have a feeling there are other things going on for my assistant, or rather the assistant director, who had been pushing into me, because her world has got a lot smaller very recently in terms of her areas of responsibility. And when I was speaking to HR last week, there was no doubt from the HR officers that were speaking to me that there's a problem with this director. They receive regular complaints about her. One of the black females who I was speaking to in HR had a similar incident with this individual. She didn't push past her, but she kind of stood in front of her expecting this black female to move out the way, and she had to tell the director to excuse her and basically move, but she didn't quite say it like that. So they know exactly what she's like, but it's up to them as to how they deal with it. And I don't have any expectations in terms of the investigation. But yeah, so I will be reporting it. I'm not going to, I'm doing things on my own time and when I can cope with dealing with all the various bits. I'm not that keen on spending time with the police either. But I will do it when probably next week, actually. Hopefully that answered your question, Gus.
Absolutely. Your health and well-being certainly is top priority, and really that is one of the products of white terrorism. Is after you take a full week, I mean a lifetime really, but I mean if we're just talking about recent, you take a full week of punishment and abuse at work, and you come home and you don't have the energy to do anything, even contacting with something that you want to do. You just don't have the energy. I know even for a lot of people, sometimes you don't have the energy to do anything. You just come home and just kind of slump for the entire weekend to rest and just not to think about anything, to kind of get your senses back. It can be that traumatizing for a lot of black people, the things that we encounter on the job. I know June Allen, she's also in the UK. She talks regularly about the importance of mental health. Dr. Welsing did as well. Lots of folks. It's really, really important to be able to replenish after you go through all this trauma on the job, because I mean it can really just do a devastating job on our sense of well-being, to where you're just totally incapacitated because it's so stressful. So really make sure we're making an effort to take care of ourselves in dealing with all of this. Folks have...
I'll say one more thing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just off the back of that, I mean, as I'd mentioned before, I've been dealing with a lot, and I've been dealing with it for, in terms of this situation for about 3 years. And it affected me in so many ways that I didn't even recognize myself, if I'm really honest. And one of the things that and it is through listening to this program, is, just understanding and being accepting of the fact that sometimes these situations are out of your control, because we can feel embarrassed. Sometimes you don't even know what's happening to you in the first instance. And I'm not talking necessarily about the racism, because you're being ill-treated, but you don't recognize the effect it's having on you for a long time. And it's just being able to be honest with myself and say, look, I'm not responsible for this, and I'm not going to beat myself up, which I was, for even getting into a stage where these people feel comfortable enough to push past me, because I'm really not that person. But somehow, because they've got away with a lot of various different acts of terrorism, that they became overly confident that they could push past me. And even thinking about the fact that somebody feels they can do that to me, I am an adult, and I've got a young person coming in feeling that they can behave that way, and I've got a director who, in the outside world, this just wouldn't fly with me. You have to behave in ways that you wouldn't ordinarily do in the workplace, because you don't want to lose your job. But over this period, and part of me getting to a position where I could address these issues and go through the formal investigation, is forgiving myself, in inverted commas, for getting to that place where people thought they could walk all over me. I'm never going to get there again. That doesn't mean to say I'm still not dealing with the emotional fallout of this. But I guess I'm saying all of this because I do think sometimes we internalize a lot of the crap that we deal with. And even the fact that as adults, we're having to go through these situations. And that can take its toll alongside the actual terrorism that you're dealing with. So, and I'm saying that just so that other people can hear it, because and hopefully that's useful for other people to hear, because this 3 years, I just don't know where they went, and I don't know how I survived some of the things that I did, and in a way allowed it to go on too long, but I just wasn't in a position to. But what I'm not going to do anymore is internalize that and put that energy into dealing with that situation, as well as trying to better myself, whether that's opportunities within the organisation I work for or externally. But I'll mute my line.
Right on. Stacey, in London, Very important point, I think. I think that happens frequently where black people in a system of white supremacy, we blame ourselves, or we are encouraged to somehow conclude that, yeah, it was something I did that was responsible for all this, or, yeah, black people, we don't fight back, so yeah, I just haven't been fighting back. I've been allowing the white person to push me. Like, we just come with all of these thoughts. It's so common. We've talked about it on the program before, myself included, and just that is another product of the system of white supremacy, finding some way where we blame and beat up on ourselves. That's why someone says, be patient with ourselves. Very, very important to recognize that and be able to have that time to just take and, as I said, replenish from everything we deal with on the job. Make sure we even are reevaluating the way we think about our role in all of this, because that can be very important too. Did other folks have any comments they wanted to share? We've been hearing some of the updates from Stacy for a while now. Any comments or feedbacks folks wanted to give Stacy before we move forward?
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I actually just wanted to thank Stacy for telling the part of her story about how they are using another victim, especially a victim that they victimized tremendously, to try to get information out of her. I'd never thought about it like that, and so it definitely helps me to add to my code. So that's all I had to add. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure some of, at least the people who have taken a more cautious approach to sharing with other black people on the job, that's one that they can relate to, or that's one that they can hold up when they say, hey, I just don't do a whole lot of sharing on the job. It's a dangerous environment, and you just can't be overly trustful, because things that you say can be repeated. That is true. That's why I say anything that you say on the job, you should just act like you're telling everybody in the universe. And if you're not comfortable with that, then maybe you should keep it to yourself. Any other responses folks wanted to give to Stacy before we move forward? Last few minutes. We only have about 10 minutes left, so no waiting till the last moment. All right. Any final comments, period, folks wanted to get in? Any final observations dealing with your own situation, or anything else you wanted to get in before we wrap things up?
Bobby Hurt.
Thomas in New York.
Yes, thank you, Gus. And I had to travel to the plantation, so I had to disconnect for a while, so I just called back in. One thing I wanted to say is a few months ago in the emergency room, on one of the boards that's put there for the employees, they had this syndrome called burnout work syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but one of my coworkers, he took it down, and he went to HR with it, and he was able to get some days off and use that to, he's able to use that pretty much when he wants to now. And I just thought that was a great remedy. I don't know if that's only because we deal with a lot of trauma, so we see a lot of things that normal people don't see. But if other people can look into that, if they're having workplace issues, that might be a way for them to get away from the workplace for a while. It might be a way to get their bosses off their back for a while. Just thought that was a great resource, and I'll mute my line.
What is it again?
Burnout work syndrome.
Burnout work syndrome. Okay. Have to see. I'll post.
It's called job burnout syndrome. It has a few different names, but it's a state of emotional or mental and physical exhaustion caused by excessive prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet constant demands. And in this type of job, we'll get in trouble, clean a huge room, and if there's one speck of blood you miss, you're getting written up. So it's a lot of job stress. You're constantly being stressed out and things like that. So that's what he went to the HR and said, he was missing some things, he was getting in trouble, so he used that as his defense and was able to keep his job and actually get some time off and everything.
Tremendous. That's what I mean. Just pick up little things that you can use. That's amazing. Now, I suspect that every black person, if they began using it, that, hey, they would just make an amendment. And no more burnout syndrome for niggers. But at least, in the time being, that might be something. You can investigate that. You can even ask in advance, is that something that this company honors? They might have resources. You said you might be able to get some time off. You might be able to get to talk to a mental health professional. Who knows? But just to check on that as well. I know people have talked about FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, as well. Just different health resources that you can use on the job to aid so that you can be a better worker and, can, I guess, more assist, or I guess with less trauma, you can minimize some of the trauma and utilize more of the resources available as you work. Other commentary from folks?
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say I appreciate Stacy for always calling in. I have a cousin that's also in England, and I know the time difference is kind of, pretty much a bit of a stretch, and we really appreciate you at least making the time and giving us this great information. My heart goes out to you and everybody over there, and the tough times you're going through, and your strength. It's inspiring, and it gives me strength. And just keep us abreast, and wish there's more we could do for you. But by you telling us what's going on, it also protects us in the long run as well. So we appreciate that. And I'll mute my line.
Well said. Well said. Stacy did lobby, or she asked, because it is so late, she did request if it was possible to rotate the book club, which is on Friday, and workplace racism, to see if we could swap them. She said she felt if we had workplace racism on Friday, and even moved up an hour, so that it came on at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, she said that might make it a little bit easier for people like herself who are not in the United States to participate. She said she thinks that black people who live in London or wherever else, they might be more interested or willing to stay awake late on a Friday night if they don't have to work on Saturday. Just a suggestion that she did toss out. I said I would throw it out again, see if folks, how they felt about it. But yeah, she has been hanging in very late. It's 8 minutes to 4 a.m. Friday morning for Stacy. She has hung in very late to participate in workplace racism for months now. Any final comments folks wanted to make sure they got in?
Gus?
Stacy in London.
Yeah, thank you again to the previous caller. I do appreciate that. And, the fact is, as always said, the situations that we all encounter are similar regardless of where we are in the world. So I'm glad it's proving useful to people in the US as well. Just on the change in time things, as you were just saying that, I was laughing because I'm not a party animal, so I don't go out on a Friday night. So it's convenient to me. So I'm going to assume that people are like me and don't do much socializing on a Friday evening. So that's why it's convenient to me. But I'm flexible either way, really. But yeah, I definitely do think there would be interest because we don't in the UK. Sorry, because I don't think there is anything similar over here. I really don't. I've not heard of it. But anyway, I'll mute my line.
There you go. We have, we do have other people in that part of the world who listen. So that would be interesting to have other folks, other parts of the world who are participating in the workplace racism broadcast. Any final comments folks wanted to get in? Last few minutes before we wrap up. Folks satisfied? Grand. We should be here tomorrow for the final book study on Gil Scott-Heron, The Last Holiday, a memoir. Looking forward. It has been a grand read, but always great to finish up a book and move on. I think we're doing Frantz Fanon. Next book, Wretched of the Earth. I think the audiobook already exists. We had Emmy and others who volunteered to read. It already exists, so I don't even think we need anyone to invest the labor in reading the book. But tomorrow we'll conclude Gil Scott Heron. Saturday we'll be here for the compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Feels like there's lots to catch up on. O.J. Simpson to be released from greater confinement. Who would have thought? Lots to catch up on for this weekend. Compensatory call-in Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you have commentary, guest suggestions, if you cannot find something in the archives, if you have a gripe, drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Much obliged to all the folks who participated. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. Again, I would encourage sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. Racists, they have an extensive history of using alcohol, drugs, narcotics, all kinds of them, to neutralize black people, to keep us easier to control under the system of white supremacy. I think it would be a great financial move, and just in general, in terms of what our priorities are, I think it would be phenomenal for non-white people to really promote sobriety. You never know when you are going to run or have contact with a race soldier. I don't think much evidence supports alcohol, cigarettes, cannabis, any other narcotics making us function better when we have contact with race soldiers, badge or no. I have seen no evidence of that. If anything, there seems to be a substantial amount of evidence that being under the influence can promote a lot of non-constructive behavior that can make it way worse if you should bump into someone classified as white, badge, or no. That's it, Creator. We ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.